Welcome back to The Explainer. So today we are going to tackle something that's absolutely crucial if you're running a subscription business in 2026. We are looking at a massive, completely silent revenue drain. Seriously, you might be bleeding cash right now without even realizing it. We're talking about a hidden leak that just quietly eats away at your bottom line, usually right while your team is popping champagne over new sales. So grab a notepad, because in this explainer, we're going to zero in on exactly how to find this involuntary churn leak, and much more importantly, how to actually fix it.
Let me ask you something right out of the gate. What do you think is the absolute fastest way to grow your SaaS business this year? Now, if you're like most founders or growth leaders, your brain probably jumps straight to, well, acquiring more new customers, obviously. And hey, it makes sense, right? More marketing, more sales, pump up those top-of-funnel leads. But look, in 2026, the median customer acquisition cost has surged to a staggering $1,200 per customer. Getting those new logos is incredibly expensive right now. So what if I told you the fastest way to grow actually has nothing to do with looking outward?
Okay, get ready for this, because this is a shocking truth. 20 to 40%. According to the latest 2026 benchmarks, a massive 20% to 40% of all B2B SaaS churn is completely involuntary. That means these customers didn't wake up one day angry at your software. They didn't defect to your biggest competitor. They just had a failed payment. A credit card expired, a bank randomly flagged a transaction, and boom, they're gone. You're literally losing up to 40% of your churned revenue just because a piece of plastic in someone's wallet hit its expiration date. Crazy, right?
All right. Section 1, the hidden revenue leak.
Think of your SaaS business like a giant bucket. You're pouring these very expensive $1,200 drops of water into the top, but there is a hole drilled right at the bottom. And the math breaks down exactly like this. The average monthly B2B SaaS churn rate right now sits at about 3.5%. Out of that, 2.6% is voluntary, so people consciously choosing to leave. But almost a full percent, 0.8%, is completely involuntary. Now, when you realize that roughly 9% of all credit cards fail annually, you really start to see the scale of this problem. Over the course of a year, that tiny monthly fraction compounds into a massive chunk of lost annual recurring revenue.
I really want you to read this quote with me from customer success consultant Lincoln Murphy, because he just hits the nail right on the head here. He says, the fastest way to reduce churn for most SaaS companies isn't a new feature or a better onboarding flow. It's fixing the dunning sequence. You're literally throwing away revenue that customers want to give you. It is absolute madness to spend a small fortune acquiring a customer, nurturing them, getting them fully onboarded, only to lose them just because nobody bothered to set up an automated email saying, hey, your card's about to expire.
Which brings us to Section 2, the 100% NRR trap. So, understanding the difference between these two metrics is absolutely crucial. In 2026, the median net revenue retention, or NRR, is sitting around 106%. Now, NRR is great. It includes all the revenue you retained, plus all the expansion, the cross-sells, the upsells. But gross revenue retention, or GRR, well, that's your pure retention. It strictly measures the revenue you kept from existing customers without counting a single dime of expansion. For B2B SaaS right now, the median GRR is hovering between 82% and 90%. So here's the trap. What you see on your dashboard might be a super healthy 106% NRR. You're high-fiving the team, everything looks great. But what's actually happening beneath the surface? Look, if your GRR is below 80%, you have a serious existential retention issue. It means your expansion revenue from a handful of power users is basically acting like a Band-Aid on a gunshot wound. You're losing your core base, and your top-line growth is totally blinding you to the fact that your product or your pricing just isn't sticking. You absolutely must fix retention before you rely solely on expansion.
Let's move on to Section 3, catching invisible churn signals.
Take a look at this stat. 60% of software buyers regretted a purchase in the past 12 to 18 months. Really think about that for a second. Unhappy customers do not wait for their annual renewal conversation to suddenly decide to leave you. That decision? It's made months in advance. It usually happens in a moment of quiet frustration on a random Tuesday afternoon while they're just trying to use your product. By the time your customer success manager reaches out 30 days before renewal, it's way too late. The ink is already dry on your competitor's contract.
So where are the warning signs? Well, they're actually buried right in your help desk inboxes. These invisible churn signals look like frustrated language, repeated ticket escalations, questions about how to export data, or even just a passing mention of a competitor's feature. And the really tragic part here is that your support team usually treats these simply as tickets to close. They fix the immediate bug, they close the ticket, and they move on. They don't route that vital warning signal over to customer success to actually go and save the account.
All right, Section 4, Fixing the Leaks. Let's get into the actionable playbook.
First things first, let's fix that 20% to 40% of involuntary churn. Here is your incredibly simple 3-step smart dunning sequence. Step 1, do not wait for the card to fail. Send a pre-dunning email 7 days before the card on file expires. Just a friendly heads up. Step 2, if a payment does fail, allow a grace period. Do not instantly lock them out of the product. Keep them engaged so they actually want to update their billing. Step 3, implement an automated retry process that intelligently hits the card at different times of the month. Implementing just these 3 basic steps can miraculously recover 50% to 80% of lost revenue from failed payments. Next up, we have to fix those invisible signals. We need to move away from reactive support, where you're only discovering unhappiness right at renewal time, and shift to proactive detection, using AI-driven ticket scanning to detect risk language and alert a customer success manager 45 days early. That is a total game changer. If a customer paying you $80,000 a year uses frustrated language in a support ticket, your CSM needs an alert that very day, not buried in some monthly report. Catching churn early like this is arguably the highest ROI activity in all of B2B SaaS. Now, another massive driver of churn is pricing. If customers feel they aren't getting value, they're going to leave. So enter hybrid pricing. This is a model that combines a flat subscription-based fee with a usage metric. And it brilliantly solves the core problem of flat pricing, where your light users end up feeling like they're overpaying and eventually churn out, while your power users just consume all your server costs and quietly erode your margins. Hybrid pricing ensures the bill always aligns perfectly with reality, and more importantly, with the customer's perceived value.
But hey, if you realize your pricing is causing churn, you have to transition really carefully. You can't just go and jack up the prices overnight. Here is the playbook for a safe transition. Number 1, grandfathering. Lock your current users into their rates for 6 to 12 months to build up some goodwill. Number 2, phased introduction. Add a usage allowance to their current plan so it feels like a nice addition, not a penalty. And number 3, sunset with notice. Give them a 90 to 180-day warning with a clear, fully supported migration path. This stops a massive customer revolt while you're busy fixing your revenue model.
Finally, Section 5, stop throwing away revenue. It's super interesting to note that acceptable churn actually varies dramatically depending on exactly who you sell to. If you're an enterprise SaaS selling contracts over $100,000, your monthly logo churn should be a tiny 0.7%. But look down at the consumer and SMB level under $500, the median monthly churn there is a whopping 6.2%. If you're operating in that SMB band, plugging your involuntary payment leaks and setting up proactive AI support isn't just a nice-to-have feature, it is absolutely critical to keeping your business alive, simply because replacing all those lost customers costs an absolute fortune. So I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. Are you building your SaaS on quicksand? Because if you are obsessing entirely over pouring new, incredibly expensive leads into the top of your funnel, all while completely ignoring the 40% of customers just falling out the bottom because of an expired credit card, well, yeah, you are. It's time to stop the leak. Fix your dunning sequence, separate your NRR from your GRR so you know the truth, and start reading those invisible signals in your support tickets today. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you in the next one.